Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Jenna. I'm a Canadian who's been living here in Germany since 2014 and I share tons of tips and experiences on what life in Germany is really like. But today we're about to flip the script a little and talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough. What happens when it's time to leave Germany? Not everybody chooses to spend the rest of their lives in Germany, but when you're employed here in Germany, you're paying into your German pension. So where does that leave us then? I've never permanently left Germany before, but I have been asked this question from hundreds of you over the years, and I have never had an answer. And the biggest question you've all had is, am I leaving money behind here in Germany? Is there money that belongs to me that I'm not receiving? I think so. And I have invited Camilo from Fundsback to really dive into this topic to make sure that you aren't missing out on getting money that's actually yours. So what Fundsback actually does is they help expats understand and reclaim their pension contributions. And so today, Camilo is going to walk us through everything you need to know, from eligibility to refund amounts, timelines, taxes, and what happens if you decide to come back to Germany one day. Are you ready? Let's go meet Camilo and dive in.
Thank you for having me, Jana. Yes, I am Camilo. I am Customer Success Manager at Fundsback. This means that my job is making sure people who start their process with Fundsback get as smooth of a ride as possible. And for this, I'm in contact with the customers and internally to ensure everything goes well.
Wonderful. So you are the expert in this call. I have a ton of questions for you, and I'm very excited to finally get them answered because, as I mentioned, there's hundreds of people who have been asking me these questions ongoing. And so I guess the biggest question we can really start off with is that when expats leave the country, are they really leaving behind that much money that it's worth it to be checking out how they can grab that pension back?
Yes, indeed. As you mentioned, many people don't even know it, and it's a shame because many people come to Germany, work very hard, and have to pay into the German pension system, and then just leave without knowing it, that they can either get the money back or that they maybe in the future have entitlements. For this reason, it is very important to make sure you think about these things, and then either if you're entitled to get the pension refund, you can pursue it by yourself or with a company like us, or at least know what type of entitlements you will have for the future if you have a pension entitlement, so that you can use this in your financial planning in the future.
And are we talking about like hundreds or like potentially thousands of euros that you could get back?
I'm happy to say that we are talking about thousands, as everyone that works in Germany can very easily check with your payslip. There's written how much you're paying into the Rentenversicherung, the amount that is deducted from your gross, and it usually is hundreds every month, which of course adds up over years to many thousands. The usual payout is 13,000 euros. There are of course very small cases, just some thousands of euros. There are also very big cases which go up to 50,000 euros. We have had this in the past, but as mentioned, 13,000 euros is the usual payout, which I guess for pretty much everyone is a considerable sum that shouldn't be just leave there laying around.
Absolutely. And is everybody eligible or just some people?
It's easy if I put this in three categories.
Okay.
Let me start by the first category, who would be people that are not eligible or certain circumstances. Those are Germans and EU citizens, and also citizens from the United Kingdom. For those persons, usually we can count them as not eligible. We can maybe later delve a bit into it, but let's continue now with the second category. Those are persons from a country that has a social security treaty with Germany, for example, Canada, the US, Australia, India, and others. We have a list on our website if someone wants to check it. From those countries, if you have worked less than 5 years in Germany and contributed to the German pension system, you will be eligible for a pension refund. If you have worked more than this 59 months, then you will only be eligible for a pension, German pension, once you have reached retirement age. Then there's, I call them the happy rest of the world, since those are countries that no matter how long you have worked in Germany, even if you have worked 8 years in Germany, you can still pursue a pension refund.
After this 5 years as a Canadian, for example, if I were to leave, like I've been here for 10 years and I were to leave, I would then be also paying into a Canadian pension. So does that just mean you would kind of like hold on to the German pension, and then eventually when you're in retirement back in Canada or wherever in the world I would be able to still claim the pension in my retirement?
Yes. So Germany and Canada have a social security treaty, which means that it is easier for pensions to be moved and combined, let's say, from country A to country B. I'm not an expert in this field, since for clarification, Fundsback expertise lies in obtaining the pension refund. If you want the pension refund or not, if it makes sense for your financial planning and future, you have to decide yourself. Also in Germany, there's something called a Rentenberater. They are professionals that will be able to, for example, look into the social security treaty between Canada and Germany and then tell you how much you are expected to get from your contributions here and your contributions there, and then you can make the educated guess. And if then you're happy, you would like to pursue it, of course, you can then come to us. There is possibilities. Also, this is very common with European Union countries that you can mix your retirements, but it's not as easy to calculate. So you probably would like to go to an expert. They will then have the knowledge and take the time to give you a good forecast of what you can expect.
So not as easy as I think I had hoped it would have been when in Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about the contributions then, what types of contributions can you get back? How much of the pension that you've paid in would you actually be able to get out if you were leaving the country?
To keep it simple, I would say you can get the contributions back that were contributed directly through your workforce. So when you, as mentioned beforehand, on your payslip every month, you will be able to see Rentenversicherungsbeiträge, so contributions to the pension system, and this will be split in yours and in ones from your employer. You can count around 9.3% of your own gross is contributed by yourself, and the same amount is contributed by your employer. And you can get your 9.3% back. The amount that your employer contributed is not refundable for you. Plus, also, if, for example, during some times you obtain Arbeitslosengeld 1, so the job center pay your money because you lost your job, they will also cover for some time your Rentenversicherung, and these amounts are also not contributable to yourself.
Understandable. Just out of curiosity, where does the other 9.3% that was contributed by your company go? Does it go back to the company in that case, or the Rentenversicherung will just withhold it, right?
Yes, the Rentenversicherung will hold it, unfortunately. Of course, in the future it might change, but now they're holding it, yeah.
Interesting. When it comes to leaving the country, we're guessing that you're going to have to probably be paying taxes on top or some sort of fees when you're pulling your pension out early. What does that look like then in Germany?
Yes, as you mentioned, getting your pension earlier, for this, indeed, there are penalty fees, but this is a different topic. So if we're just talking about a pension refund, there is luckily no fees or penalizations, besides, of course, what we have discussed, that you will only get back your own contributions, not the ones that were made on your behalf. And regarding taxes, we're not tax advisors, but we made some research and we saw that there's a ruling by a tax court actually in Düsseldorf, which states that pension refunds do not apply for taxes, which is amazing. There's no taxing of those refunds in Germany. Of course, depending on the country, your home country or the country from where you pull this refund, there might be taxes. Of course, you will have to then delve in yourself and make sure that you do everything correct there. Yeah.
Right, because it's money made in your new country. Makes sense. Very cool. So you guys are the experts, really. So I would love to also dive in and ask you, what would the process look like? Would you take everybody step by step through what they have to do? Do you do it for them? How does that work then at Fundsback?
Our idea and the reason why we exist is to make this bureaucratic process as slim as possible and as less time consuming for the individual as possible. First of all, you can just go through a link to our pension check. This means that you will give us some information about yourself. We will then check briefly if you're in principle eligible for a pension refund in Germany. If so, we will then go to the German pension insurance or reach out to them on your behalf, gather all your contribution information and everything that is necessary to be able to tell you the exact number of money that is stored on your behalf there. This takes around 5 minutes to fill out the pension check. Then you just have to wait around 1 to 2 weeks until we have obtained from them in the information. And with this, we will be able to tell you exactly how much you can get back. If you're already eligible for a pension, then how much your pension would be. Not exact numbers about the pension refund we can tell you exactly, but the pension is always, because of course it depends on how much you will pay, it's a forecast. If you are eligible for a pension, when around your pension could start. With this information, you are then also provided with a quotation from us. Then you can, of course, decide if you take it or not. If you don't take it, you will at least know exactly how much you're entitled to. If you decide to go with us, we will then just need around 15 minutes from your time, just some questions that are necessary for us to check further your case. And if everything is fine, we will then need 1 or 2 documents that legally we're not able or allowed to make for you, since we need to prove it is really you who's trying to access your funds and that you are leaving outside European Union and the UK, since if you are still residing in the European Union or the UK, you're not eligible for a pension refund. That's all you have to do from your part. And then, of course, our main part of the work starts. So we submit your case with help of one of the legal companies that work with us and make sure that your case is then successfully paid out. There have also been some cases where the German pension insurance at the beginning wasn't keen to pay it out because they were claiming that the person was not eligible, but that's also part of our service. We then, of course, check their answers, evaluate them legally, and then if we see that their declining is not correct, we will then undertake legal steps to ensure that you still obtain your pension refund.
So the biggest question that I think a lot of people are already realizing, okay, I definitely should not be doing this alone, but how much would it actually cost someone to go through Fundsback and get their pension back?
So Fundsback's fee structure is no win, no fee. When you also obtain successfully your refund, there will be any cost. In the case that for any reason there will be no refund, no cost will arise to you. And as mentioned, Fundsback will also then challenge the decision of the German pension insurance if we legally deem it to not be correct. At this moment, the fee is 9.405%. Since we're running discount, usually it's 9.9%. There is also a minimum fee and a maximum fee. There are some fixed costs that arise to us. Legal costs, the companies we work with legally, they of course bill us, and this means that for very low payouts we cannot keep this percentile, as then we will be making a loss. The minimum fee is 854.05 euros at the moment with a discount, and the maximum fee right now is 2,754 euros and 5 cents, also with a discount. The prices might change. We can keep you updated about the exact prices.
There's a lot more gray area in this topic, I think, than I realized. At first, when you started talking and explaining the process, I thought, okay, it makes sense. It's kind of like, when you're applying for Elterngeld. The process seems really simple, but at the end of the day, with my second kid, I realized, okay, we need like this Elterngeldberater, like somebody who can help you through it all. But this is kind of next level. So then you continue to talk and I was like, oh my God, I would never do this by myself. Is it safe to say that anybody who was employed should be eligible for this pension refund if they were paying into the Deutsche Rentenversicherung, or what's that like?
Yes, honestly, everyone should check it when they leave Germany, because if you do it by yourself, I wouldn't do it by myself. The checking, let's say, you will need to ideally find out which is your branch of the German pension insurance. You will need to send them letters, often physical. Okay. There's a lot of work just to know. You can just check for free on our website with no cost and no need, of course, to continue with us. And then you will at least know how much you can get.
It's companies like your company that I'm honestly so thankful for. Nowadays, there's so many amazing places to get support in different areas of life here in Germany. There's also one thing, I guess, that none of us really have control over, and that's the bureaucratic system here in Germany and how long things take. So it sounds like it's relatively simple, to go through the process with Fundsback, figure out if you're eligible, have you guys on our side really walking us through submitting the forms we need to submit. But how long does it actually typically take to get that refund in your bank account then?
Here we're affected by bureaucracy and also by the famous or infamous German federal system, which means that there is not only one Deutsche Rentenversicherung, at least more than 10, depending on your nationality, where you live. Different branches of them will be responsible for handling your case, which means that first we need to find out which one is the correct one, submit it there, because if we don't submit it to the correct one, they will either write you back, oh, sorry, it's not our responsibility, or if they're nice, they will move it internally, but it still takes weeks usually. Also, depending on which branch of the German pension insurance is responsible for your case, processing time varies. We have some very fast cases which are paid out in, I think the fastest was 10 days after submission.
Wow.
Yeah, the customer was very amazed. The vast majority of cases are processed in around 2 months. So that's, I would say, 90% of the cases. Then there is also, unfortunately, some cases that takes longer, 4, 5, or 6 months. Legally, the German pension insurance has the right to take up to 6 months for processing a case. We cannot force them to do it faster than 6 months. Luckily, they do it faster as long as you send it to the right place and as long as everything is correct. Because the main thing that drags out applications is when the application is incorrect. Because of course, for every incorrect thing, they will ask you again, they will demand further proofs, and the mailing takes ages.
Sounds just like the immigration office here. Like when people are like, what should I avoid doing? Why is this taking so long? And I always say, if you don't have everything in order and the exact answers and documents that they need in the first submission, then everything gets delayed and you might be put, back at the end of their pile, and then they're working on another case. And this is, in regards to immigration, unfortunately, up until this point in time, I don't know anybody who can do something like that, but we need someone like you
Yeah,
to do that over at immigration. But where do you have to get the money to go to then? Like, does it have to be a German bank account, or can I get that submitted to my Canadian bank account, for example?
This is very flexible, so it doesn't matter as long as the bank account is connected to the international bank system. It's not an issue. Our customers come from pretty much all over the world, and honestly speaking, I've only noticed some minor problems from Iran, since there are many sanctions. I think their bank system is not directly connected to the international system, so there's some workarounds, but it still works then. We recommend though to keep, if you have an IBAN account, so by this way you can navigate and don't have fees for the international sending.
True.
Because of course, if I'm sending money to Canada, there usually will be fees from our bank as well from your bank. Maybe it helps the viewers. There are some banks that, for example, from our knowledge, Wise, they enable you to have several accounts.
Yeah.
And you can obtain the money to your IBAN account and then just transfer it at a good rate to dollars.
It makes a lot more sense. Like, I would tell somebody if they have money in Germany and they're moving back home, never to just transfer it from your one bank to the other. So it's a similar case in the sense, like, you want to use a transfer company that is cheaper and more affordable. We've also talked about that many times in many videos before, so we've got lots of tips there too. So it seems like a stupid option or a stupid question now to even ask, because realistically, if you were paying into the German pension system, the Deutsche Rentenversicherung, it makes sense to try to get that money back if you're eligible for that. But what happens if I just chose not to, or I was too lazy and I didn't do it? Like, where does my money go? Is it been invested for me? What's happening with that money that I put into the pension system when I'm not in Germany then?
If you have paid less than 5 years, you don't have any rights. So this money will be just lost if you don't take it. What happens with the money is it just lays around. Let's say you come here, you work 4 years, so you haven't got the right for a pension. Then this money is just laying there, which if you plan to come to Germany in the future, could be beneficial, because then let's say you come back in 10 years, then you can just work 2 years or 1 year and 1 month, and you will then be eligible for a pension. So this is stored there, your contribution periods. But the money itself is not being invested, as the German pension system doesn't work like in other countries where the money, there's a states fund that invest in stocks and different assets and it grows there. The money that we are paying right now, the working people, goes straight to the retirees from today. Everyone that lives in Germany for some times would have heard at least once the German pension system is quite under a lot of pressures due to the demographic change. The Bund, so the federal state, is subventioning, I think I just read some days ago, I think 2023 was over 100 billions of euros who were transferred from the federal state to the Deutsche Rentenversicherung, so that they can keep up paying all of what they have to pay. So already we're in deficit. If you would like to get your money back, I would just recommend do it as soon as you can. Inflation will eat it slowly but surely.
So what happens if somebody actually did go through and claim that benefit and then leave the country and then decide they want to move back?
You will need to start from scratch. That's why you shouldn't do this just without thinking about it. There's though something that is like a little security system, at least time-wise. This is that you can only apply for a pension refund earliest 2 years after your last contribution to the German pension insurance, which usually means when people leave Germany. So usually people in this time, they will have had enough time to know if they will return back to Germany or not, and then they can start the process.
If I decided not to claim my pension before I left and then say I came back like 8 years later, then I guess that that pension money would be gone. Like it's not like they're holding it for me then, right?
The money, the right is still there. Let's make an example. Let's say you are from Ukraine. Ukraine is not a contracting state. So you could, let's say, you work here for 4 years, you go away and spend some years outside of Germany. Then you come back and you haven't claimed your pension refund. You work again for 4 years. If you leave Germany again, you could get all those 8 years back.
Is there like a certain cutoff that they say, okay, you've been gone for 20 years? A lot of Germans actually who leave Germany and then they decide they want to come back and retire here. Would they get cut off?
There's no cutoff, likely, since if you have contributed, you have earned the right. Of course, the danger, let's say, when you were very young, you contributed for 1 year, and then you come back at 65, and then you contribute for 2 years. You will not reach the 5 years to have any rights.
Right.
There are some very minor cases where Germans can still get a pension refund. And for example, this will be such a case. So if you are already in retirement age, but contributed for some years, but do not have the minimum time, you can get your pension refund, even then as a German. Yeah.
And do you have to actually take your pension out of Germany, or is there any way to actually just transfer it over to another pension system in a different country?
This works in principle with contracting states.
Okay.
For example, with Canada, they can help you to also apply at the same time for your German pension. They can combine it.
Okay.
Again, though, this is quite complicated, and honestly speaking, it's not our expertise. That's why you better go to someone who's expert with this, and they will be able to tell you.
To wrap it up, I think the most important question that everybody wants to know is when we're talking maybe like Canadians versus EU versus Germans, is everybody allowed to claim this pension refund?
Everyone who doesn't belong to the first category, Germans and EU citizens, they're in principle allowed, as long as they don't live in the EU or Germany or the UK. Afterwards, pretty much everyone is in principle eligible. So that's why, again, no cost to you. Just check it and then you will have certainty or not.
And is it a different process for like a German versus say a Canadian moving back to Canada?
There's some differences that you should think about in the application. This is mainly depending on the social security treaties that your country has with Germany. Of course, since we have been doing this for over 10 years now, I think more than 3,000 cases, we have had now everything, so we know what to include for every nationality. Yeah.
I was going to ask, can everybody come to you guys then?
Yes, everyone is welcome to check out our website if they're eligible.
Okay.
Also, if there are questions after you have done this eligibility check online, you're free to schedule a meeting with me or one of my colleagues, and we can then check further into your case. The meeting, of course, without any cost.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that's all the questions I have for you today.
Thank you, Jenna, for having me here. It was an honor to be with you on your channel and make this important topic more accessible for expats who are leaving Germany. Since, as mentioned, if you don't take care about this, you might be leaving thousands of euros just there laying around without having any benefit in the future.
And there you have it. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any additional questions, of course, always make sure to ask them down below. Camilo or myself are going to be, at least for the first few weeks, checking in on the comment section below. If you have any questions, you can also contact them at Fundsback. I will include the contact details down in the description below for you. If you're leaving Germany, I hope you have an amazing adventure wherever in the world you're going. And if you decide to come back, well, I'll see you over here. Vielen lieben Dank. Und wie immer, bis später.